You're good to go.
All right, then I will begin the meeting. Okay. Welcome, everybody. As a preliminary matter, I am Gloria Grice, Chair of the Needham Historical Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Don Lankowitz.
Yes.
Jeff Heller.
Yes.
Rick Hardy.
Yes.
Dylan Attia.
Yes.
We are not expecting Rose Doherty tonight. She has to be absent. And as of right now, Laura Dorfman has not joined us. There are no other anticipated speakers on the agenda tonight. Good evening. This open meeting of the Needham Historical Commission is being conducted remotely as consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting on May 24th, 2021, the Needham Historical Commission is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and also take care not to screen share your computer. The recording of this meeting is a public document, and anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now going to turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. And please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Two things I would like to note. Laura Dorfman has joined us, so she is added to the attendance list. And also, I would like to mention that our next meeting is on June 21st. That will be the final meeting of the year. Our meetings will resume in September unless there is urgent business to conduct in the interim, in which case you will be given adequate notice of a meeting time. Also, as mentioned, we are meeting by Zoom under the current state of emergency. That state of emergency is going to be lifted on June 15th, which is 1 week before our next meeting. So it is not clear right now whether the next meeting will take place on Zoom or in person. Obviously, we'll let you know in advance, and that information will be posted on the posted agenda. But for right now, we're still holding on that one.
So
Okay.
the meeting June 21st.
June 21st is our next meeting, the last meeting of the season, and then we will meet again in September. And we'll settle that schedule over the summer too. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the January and March meetings. Let's start with January 11th. My comments on this, Jeff, were in all cases useful names. So instead of, as just sort of basically scan through, and whenever there's a set, the first name, please add the last name as well, for the
Okay.
record. There was one other typo, under item 5. This led to the discussion. There's a typo, there's 2 typos in that first sentence, so I changed it to, this led to a discussion of what benchmark is often used by different towns. Does anybody else have any comments on the January minutes? Okay, hearing none. Then we will submit these minutes as amended. I would like a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Richard Hardy, seconded by Don Langowitz. All in favor, Don, or in favor, opposed, Don?
Yes.
Rick?
Aye.
Dylan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Oh, you're biased. Laura?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the January 11th minutes as amended are accepted unanimously. It brings us to the March 15th, 2021 minutes. 2 changes I had to that, Jeff. One was you had the December date. You had both dates, actually. So delete the line that says December 15th or whatever the December date was, and just identify them as the minutes of the meeting for 15th March. And then I added, there were no minutes for February, since that meeting was canceled for lack of a quorum.
Gloria?
Anybody, Laura?
Yeah, so Jeff, I remember in this meeting that I brought up, I suggested, just because of the confusion around the discussion on whether the Ezra House was significant, whether it needed a vote, there was all the back and forth, that I asked Gloria if she would check with town council. And to clarify, that there's a section of the bylaws that were really confusing on that. And Gloria did, in fact, check with town council. And I think she responded in an email about the results of that conversation. And I don't know if in another subsequent set of minutes, there's probably not, because we didn't meet in April, right? There's a dialogue about that, but
No, we did meet in April. And that was when Gloria reported back on what she had consulted with
Dave Tobin.
town council about. That's
Yeah, so these minutes,
But-
the March minutes should note
Should-
that Laura raised that question that I was going to report back.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah, I think
I
that-
understand it now, but I think that's important because
Yeah,
one part of the bylaws seem to contradict the other part of the bylaws.
okay. Does anybody else have comments or changes on this? Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's the way my document printed out, but perhaps look at, because there seems to be a lot of bold and a lot of
Yeah,
fonts. So just to get some consistency, since it's a public document, and also check where there should be periods, or where there
Yes.
should not be periods.
Right, yeah,
yeah. There are some editor artifacts that are floating around, extra spaces, extra periods, that I think come from the fact that Jeff uses a different editor. Yeah, so if you could just check it for that kind of consistency as well. Any other comments? Do we want to see them again, review them again, or are we good going forward?
I kind of would like to see just those changes, if that's okay.
Okay, so
That we talked about.
then we will hold on approval of these minutes until the next meeting. And in the meantime, Jeff will send us an amended version.
And Jeff, if you want me to, is it okay for me to email things that I recall from the conversation, or should that only come from, I don't know how that works,
You could do that.
to help him out a little bit?
That's fine, but these days I can go back to the video, go to the website.
Ah,
And I can
do
go.
that,
Yeah.
do that.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so
Oh,
please
right.
please incorporate
Right.
that information in the discussion, and we will review these minutes and the April minutes as well, Jeff, next time?
Yep.
Okay, so,
And I don't have minutes for the April meeting yet. Okay.
okay, so next time we will review, let's make myself a note here, the March, April, and May minutes.
I sure hope when the special order gets reviewed that they, allow Zoom meetings and, the fact that they're recorded like this is a great advantage.
It is for both the public and for us. Yeah, we'll see what happens, and certainly that's something we might want to mention to the town manager's office going forward.
Want to make a point before we move on?
Okay.
I don't know if it's I know you probably know, Gloria, but if everybody knows that Sandy Sincata has put in for her, she's resigning. I don't even know when her last date was. I was going to ask the gentleman who's monitoring if she had left yet.
Resigning or retiring?
She's retiring.
Retiring.
She's retiring, and I
Yeah.
think she said I don't know if she said June 1st or through June. Clay, do you know?
I actually had not heard. I know that she was in on one of the meetings today, so it has not been effective yet.
Okay. I think it's through June. That's what I seem to recall.
I hope I didn't disclose anything. She was.
No, they
But-
said that
It's
at
special.
the beginning of one of the town meetings, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's totally
I know
public.
that. That's how
Yeah.
I heard it.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes, Rick?
I'd like to make a motion that the commission formally thanks her for her service to the town.
Yes. Good. I was going to do that. Okay. Rick moved. Gloria seconds.
May I make I'm sure she's going to get a lot of accolades, but specifically, maybe we could recognize for the service and help that she has been to, the Historic Commission and everything that she's done towards preservation. If that's a friendly amendment.
Yes. Well, we don't have a motion. We don't have a full motion yet. So
So we've got it,
we can incorporate that
someone
without
moved.
voting as an amendment, right? We haven't worded the motion yet.
We've moved and we have a second, right? So now
Yeah.
it's discussion,
Yeah.
and Jeff makes in the discussion, a recommendation for a
To be more
wording.
specific, I'm just suggesting we be a little more specific, coming from us, the historical commission, of how helpful she's been to us specifically, as well as even towards preservation.
Okay, so how do you want to word this? Offer our thanks to Sandy Sakata for her
Or you
Service
could
to the
use
town and for her support of the,
support of community preservation.
Well,
Or
support to the
historical
commission,
preservation.
or the support to the commission in our work. She's been helpful.
Oh, I
persistence-
thought you were saying something different about,
No.
okay, I
persistence with
misunderstood.
the work of the commission. Offer our thanks to Sandy Sakata for her assistance with the work of the commission. in support of historic preservation?
Yeah. Well, is that what you meant, Jeff? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I think that captures it, because I think, I mean, think of all the things that she's done and the mailings and all those notices. I think that's an effort of supporting of historical preservation or efforts.
Okay, so how's this? You make changes and additions as you see. That's right. Offer our thanks to Sandy Sincata for her valued assistance with the work of the commission in support of historic preservation in Needham.
Great.
That
Yeah.
cover? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, come to a vote. Don Lankwitz,
Aye.
Rick Hardy,
Aye.
Dylan Attia,
Aye.
Jeff Heller,
Aye.
Laura Dorfman,
Aye.
and Gloria Grice also votes aye, so the motion passes unanimously. And I wrote that down, Jeff, so I could send it to you if you didn't get it down.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, so actually, if you have the notes from the last meeting, because I don't remember where we were in this, but we were discussing steps for implementing the neighborhood preservation district proposal. We talked about potential districts to go forward with. One would be 3 Rosemary Street, Mohandel's house. One would be the Warren Street neighborhood. One would be the McIntosh Historic District. We don't need to go forward with all of those. There was another one, wasn't there?
It didn't come up in the meeting, but but Rick had passed around a story about the, I guess it's the Joshua Lewis house. It's
Yeah,
going to be turning into the Wyeth Library.
yeah. Yeah, that's another possibility. As I said, we need to have at least one of them. We don't need to have all of them
Right.
at once.
Right.
But we need at least one to go forward with. Because we do need to go to town meeting. Obviously, we want the most enthusiastically supported by the owners in the potential district. I think we would get that certainly with Mo's house, but a single building district might also not be the most compelling argument. So,
When we first started discussing the options,
yeah,
when Mo was still a selectman, I was reluctant to use Mo's house as our first test case.
yeah,
I think I shared that once Mo lost the election, I was reconsidering whether or not, that's not a better choice than the others. However, I think this with this recent inclusion of idea, I think it's almost a perfect setting. Maybe I would support either doing the NC Wyatt house or doing Mo and that one together. I wonder what other people think of that.
I think it might be premature right now to do the Wyatt House. Because there are a lot. I mean, I don't think this would cause any issues with the plans, but I think with the plans sort of right now, the building plans, the foundation is established. That's not an issue. But the house is currently undergoing some renovation, and I think the foundation was a little skittish right now. I also think that if we could get Warren Street organized,
Are the foundations up against some challenges?
no,
When you say,
well, no, I just, because they're doing a lot of house renovations right now and those plans are not yet finalized, I think you would not get the cooperation that you want. I think that's a second try property. The other reason I would like to go with the Warren Street District is I think the effort would have more credibility if you had a neighborhood that backed it. Because you're going to need eventually to get these larger groups to make it effective. You're going to need these larger groups, not just a bunch of single houses. And I think if we could get them organized, we would be going to town meeting with a stronger case. Laura.
So my question is, shouldn't we be finding out how much support we have from the people in these supposed districts
Yes.
before we start working on anything? Because, right, don't they all have to agree and come together? And how do we
Oddly
do
enough,
that?
they don't have to agree. But
But they have to work with
legally, they
us.
don't have to agree, but as a practical matter, if they went to town meeting in opposition, it wouldn't pass. So you need them to come to town meeting and support. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
So
and-
how do
and
we do
yes,
that? How
we
do we
do.
figure that out?
that's all part of the process, is discussing the parameters of that with them. The problem being that we don't yet have the parameters to discuss.
So I feel like it's premature to discuss which one until we know where we're going to
Yeah.
get the most support from the people who live in that district. That's
Yeah.
just my feeling.
No, I know, no, you're right. We can't
Well, I
go
think-
forward in any meaningful way without having identified a specific location. And we can't identify a specific location without having a discussion with those neighbors.
Right, but I think we have a pretty good sense of what Warren Street support's gonna be, other than
Warren Street
100.
support, Warren Street is generally speaking supportive. But it's hard to nail anybody to that when we haven't said, this is what you gotta support. You know, they want a solution that will preserve that block intact. They have said this. But we have to tell them what that solution is gonna be and what it's actually gonna mean to them. You know, what the real practical repercussions are going to be before we can count on their support. And that's, you know, the process according to the state is you sort of start with putting together a committee and then work out, you know, the parameters. But it seems to me that we really need to have some sort of draft parameters to form a committee around. Because I think it's very hard to go to a bunch of people who haven't been discussing historic preservation and say, hey, let's get together and make this plan. You know, I think we have to say, okay, this is what we're thinking. Now let's take it, you know, now let's take it forward from the point of view, not only of preservation, but of, you know, public safety, zoning, the practical political reality of bringing it through town meeting, you know, property issues. What does the town council say we could do and not do? You know, all of that is going to be necessary, and all of that's going to be part of the district commission planning committee or whatever the, you know, the rubric says. But I think to do that, we have to have essentially a draft statement similar to the one that Wellesley produced of their neighborhood preservation districts. They call them neighborhood conservation districts, I believe. You know, to say, this is what we're thinking of, now let's hammer it out. I don't think.
And do we address them, Gloria? Like, do we first like reach out to this group of people, like formally with a letter or something, or an email or something, and say, this is what we're thinking, and these would be the next steps, and just find out how much consensus there is in that group? I mean, I know, Dawn, you have been talking about this for a long time. I'm just wondering what the very first step would be. Because I think if we could do this, it would be so great for this commission to say that we, you know, to get this done.
Are any of you on the, I know a couple of you are on the MHC listserv? There's been I know Rick is, right? And Don, you on that also? There's a huge
Yeah.
discussion this month about builders and developers who simply blow off the rules.
Right.
You know, the house was protected. It was all agreed that the builder tore it down anyway. And what's the recourse? You know, to say $300 a day, which is what our, you know, the non-compliance for us, $300 a day until it's put right. Well, how do you put right the discretion of an 18th century house? I mean, you could build one that looks just like it, but that's not really the point, you know. So I mean, there are a lot of issues around doing this, and I think, okay, this is going to be my suggestion, which we then discuss and take forward. I think we need a sort of draft outline, and then I think we submit it to, I guess, either the select board chair or the town manager or both, and say, we want this to be a matter of discussion. This is the process.
Well, I think, Gloria, I agree with Gloria. I agree with you. You know, in your first suggestion of needing that draft statement, right, before we go to find the kind of support that we have in the Warren Street neighborhood,
or anywhere,
right? Anywhere, we have to have a draft of exactly what this is. We can't be vague about it for them to jump on, and so should there be a committee, or there should be a committee, or to that's the first step. Then I don't know. Do we go to the district, Warren Street, before we go to the selectmen? Because we would want them on board when we go before the selectmen as well, right?
Well, I think that actually can sort of happen simultaneously. There's going to be a long process of getting, you know, our draft to resemble something that could become a bylaw.
Right.
It could involve a lot of, you know, non-neighborhood participant issues, you know, the legal issues and the zoning issues and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we should go to the neighborhood and say, this is what we're thinking. What's your input?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to become a multi-pronged conversation long before, you know, it comes to any sort of fruition. Yeah, Don?
Yeah, I just to make sure I understand the process, the commission itself is the sponsor, right? And the sponsor promotes whichever district we're talking about to the select board. The select board then appoints a committee.
Yeah. We actually, my impression, I mean, we've got X number of flow charts.
Yeah.
But my impression for that is that since this is not being initiated by the select board, we are in fact the initiating sponsor. But once that district committee is appointed, I think we essentially hand over sponsorship.
Right.
So we're not going to be, you know, we as a historical commission, excuse me, can initiate the process, but we are not in the long run the shepherds. You know, we will say, if the select board agrees that, yeah, this is something we should look into, we essentially then, you know, throw it into their lap and into this process as defined by the state of, you know, of creating a district commission study committee and that sort of thing. But I think, yeah, to do that, to go to them and say, we would like you to do this, we'd like you to consider this, we need to be answering the question, what is it we would like you to consider?
Right.
You know,
So I think
we need a sort of preliminary outline statement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be to both of our benefits, the district and the commission, if we want to move this forward, is to actually put down what it is, what the district would do and what it can't do.
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of confusion about that.
Yeah, and what it can't do is very explicitly, needs to be very explicitly stated, because we go through this. I actually had intended to have a document ready to run by you guys. I'll try and have it ready for the June meeting. I'm constantly asked by realtors about, what's the process? Okay, the house is on the inventory. What's the process? What can we do? What can we not do? And it seems to me that we should just have a brochure that says, this is the bylaw, this is what it means. And most purposes, this is what it doesn't mean. Because they're constantly, we've had people call up and say, I've got a historic house, but I want to change a window and you're not going to let me. It's like, I'm not going to stop you. There's nothing in the bylaw that governs your changing a window. And, thankfully, the building commissioner is, well-versed in the implications of this bylaw and doesn't send people, doesn't hold up jobs and say, you can't have a window without a 6-month delay. But still, people worry, well, if I do this, I won't be able to renovate my house. If I do this, you're going to take control of my property. So, I just figured if I just wanted to write up something that when a realtor calls, or even just to submit, just circulate to all the realtors and say, look, here's the deal. These are the FAQs. If you have any questions, call us. So if I get around to that by June, I will send it out for circulation and we can comment and edit on it. But I'm just tired of saying the same things over and over. But people have fears, that it's going to take over, that they're going to lose control of their property. And I think, as well as, what this bylaw would do, we also have to make very explicit what the bylaw will not do. So
Don,
don't
did-
feel that they're being
I-
trapped. Laura, I think you were first, and then
I
Jeff.
feel like you sent a letter to the people in the Warren Historic District like 2 years ago or a long time ago. Am I imagining that? Did you do some
No,
outreach?
we had a preliminary discussion with.
There's no outreach at all?
Was it Rick, you and me and Don?
Well, yeah, the first time was at, I forget the house.
Yeah,
Then the second was in with I think Mo was there at the schoolhouse. And
yeah,
then
but
we
this
had
is
a-
with with Florence and Sam Graves,
Yeah,
who
Yep.
have a historic house and essentially jump started. They were the ones who sort of got this process going, because they said the neighborhood, at some point, the neighborhood realized that with the exception of one house, at the time, the entire block was intact as original. One house has since been torn down. And that they wanted to maintain that, and what was the mechanism for doing that? And so we talked about the demolition delay, but then we also started talking about the possibility of neighborhood districts. So we haven't had a neighborhood conversation yet, either in person or by letter. We've had a personal discussion with Sam and Florence Graves, who were interested in moving the process forward and gathering, they've been sort of gathering neighborhood support, but no, there's been no formal approach yet. Jeff, what was your question? Or did I sidetrack you?
Yeah, I did
I
forget.
sidetracked him.
Oh, yes, I know my point, right? With the brochure,
Yeah.
Trying to allay people's fears
Yeah,
of what, we're not going to impose any things that you can't, a delay to change a window.
yeah,
But however, a local historic district, based on what gets written as a covenant, is one of those things that they should be fearful of how the language gets done, because that can impose more control than they would like. And I think that's, again, where we have to be careful, because that's an accurate interpretation of that power in the district law.
but that control is determined by how we write the parameters. And I think it's very important when we do write the parameters that,
Well, it's how we don't write the parameters, right? It would
well,
be
the
the
committee. will
district that would be
the
hopefully
ones we're gonna
well
initially
represented by the
suggest.
community.
Yeah, but the ones we're gonna initially suggest are primarily gonna govern demolition, not, as I said, there are historic district commissions that are very, very strict. Window type and house color and roof materials and, the whole bit, because they're trying to preserve, the neighborhood like a fly in amber.
But we have to be, when it
That's
comes
not-
time, I think sometimes we have to be careful around that demolition line, because anytime, if someone wants to change windows, the permit's gonna say, demolish and replace,
Yeah.
right? Whereas.
Yeah. Well, that's something we have gone back and forth on in Needham's bylaw. There is no definition of demolition. So that would be something, to be very specific about in anything that was proposed for an LLC.
Exactly.
So we'd have to say, demolition means, 51+% or whatever.
Or demolition means
Removal of a
to remove and
significant
not replace.
Yeah,
That's what
something like.
to say, if you're replacing it with something more modern, it's not, you're not demolishing it,
Yeah, and excluding general maintenance and stuff like that. Yeah, no, we have to be specific about things like that. Laura?
Sorry, where did we end up? I got some information on demo delays in other towns, and then we left. I'm not sure where we left it off because I wasn't at the April meeting. Maybe we thought we needed to get more information. Or there was no April meeting. I don't remember which one happened,
No,
but
we did discuss it. We did discuss it, and really, basically, the conclusion was it doesn't work and nobody's happy. Because in addition to the information that you gathered, there was a long discussion on the MHC listserv, and it really became clear that towns that have 6-month demolition delays don't consider them effective and really want to upgrade to 12 months. And towns that have 12-month demolition delays don't consider them effective and want to upgrade to 18 months. And towns that have 18-month demolition delays consider them only marginally effective and want to go up to 2 years. And so it's clear that the demolition delay is not an effective tool. And Chris Skelly has said this on numerous occasions. He said, it's there because it's there, but it's not an effective preservation tool. It has not materially benefited preservation in Massachusetts.
so I always asked why when I was coming up against this, what's the purpose of the delay? And the answer was so the developer can come up with some other alternative that's more appealing. But in the end, they never do really, right? They just wait it out is what.
They just wait it out, and they wait it out in different ways. One is the permit process takes most of that 6 months. If they start early in the process with their demolition request, by the time they have gotten through all of their various plan drafting and permit requests and disconnectings and stuff, the 6 months is almost over.
So maybe it shouldn't be based on time of a delay. Maybe the consideration should be given towards age or more than just the properties on some register. Maybe if the property's more than, I don't know, 60 years old or 70, whatever it is, then maybe that's the criteria, not the time, which just passes and then they end up doing whatever they want to do. I don't know.
You still need to put some parameter around you can't forbid them to ever outside of the local historic district structure. You could not forbid them to ever tear the house down.
No, I know, but you could say this house is X number of years old. That in and of itself might give pause to somebody versus just saying we don't even have, all we have here is if it's on the register. We don't even have an age requirement in this town.
No, but Rick?
I mean, to your, Laura, to your point, I don't know if you read Gloria's email that she sent just a few hours ago about
Probably not.
Stockbridge's solution to the problem, which is quite interesting.
A little difficult. Let's see, that was a while ago and I said that. Do I have a?
Isn't it? It feels like just a couple of hours ago.
No, it was days.
No, it
Days?
wasn't.
Days
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a while ago. I forget. Where's my? Yeah, I don't know if that would work for us either, but you know, the other thing is the select board has already said that they are not,
Here it is.
they're not gonna, they will not approve an age-based. Though I think there are places that may have
Many places.
ways based on, a lot of places.
They all,
in
a
fact,
lot of them did.
State's recommendations by age, but, oh yeah, try to find a purchaser, bona fide efforts to find a purchaser first. Yeah. Yeah, I think,
I don't know. I just
ways
think
around that too, but I think that's
a
certainly
way to give pause to certain, you know, not properties that are, sorry. Not properties that are, it's not just age, I understand that, but it just, if there was a reason to put it in the paper and someone saw it, it gives it a little bit of a chance, that's all.
yeah.
And, you know, I think that there may be a way to do that that's better than what we have, which is currently nothing.
Yeah.
Really, we have nothing.
And honestly, you know, as we found with was it 1475, neighborhood support for preservation, you know, if the builder's not interested, the builder's not interested. And at this point, right now, there's very little recourse. You know, 6 months is not a deterrent. On the, you know, on the other hand, I work every day in what are essentially 2 rescue buildings. You know, builders who were amenable to finding an alternate solution. You know, it could happen. They were both local builders. They both, you know, had some feeling for the town. It could happen if
That's unusual though,
It is-
especially
it is.
now when prices are crazy right now. Like people will buy anything in this town and they'll pay way over asking for it, you know? So it's going to be, I think we'd be hard pressed to find somebody in this market, which can happen again or not. But that
Well,
would do
But
that.
you know,
Yep. Jeff?
the Gloria, the delay did save those 2 houses. I mean, those builders had the 6-month delay on and they said,
That's true.
We'll move it. Didn't cost them hardly anything, $20,000 one. The other one, we raised all the money for, right? And we did all the work finding a resting home interim for it. You know, all they had to do
No, that's
is.
true. But
So
don't forget, Jeff, that was that builder, but prior to that group, sorry, I'm just gonna call it, prior to that group, there had been another team on it for a long time. So it really wasn't just that 6 months. Remember, that was passed over by another developer to that group.
No, we're talking, he's talking about the schoolhouse. He's talking about the schoolhouse.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought you were talking about, I'm sorry.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I
no,
thought-
it's true. But yeah,
Well,
for Jack's, you know, it took longer because it was two developers, but it was clear that, you know, one developer was willing to, you know, work together and the other one wouldn't even answer phone calls.
Right, but the developer,
Frankly, when concessions were going to be offered.
the developer who, you know, for the schoolhouse, we did all the work and raised money. For the Mills house that you're in, you know, that he did that kindly, right? But he only had to move, you know, but he only had to move it 100 feet, you know.
He only had to move it 100 feet. He wanted to move fast. This was a win-win for, you know, for both of us.
Yes.
But if they can, he wanted to move fast because he was flipping the property. You know, so if they can wait the 6 months, they will. it's one builder rented a property out to monetize the 6 months. Other ones just, sort of leave it there and go through their process. I think, I'm not certain about this, but I believe the Greendale house, which, from my point of view is over there, was sold to a owner, not a builder, I think. So I think that didn't
But
come.
owners can do demo too.
Yeah, but I think it was sold to somebody intending to use it and not tear it down, but I'm not certain about that. That's what I've heard. I haven't confirmed it yet.
Anyway,
Um,
I'm sorry, I digress. The
yeah.
issue is, what do we do with these local historic, how do we move forward with the
I think
local
the next-
historic district? Yeah.
I think we need a small subcommittee who will just draft some, draft some, make a preliminary draft for our next meeting. Is anybody willing to do that? Based on the thing that,
I will, but I'd need probably the expertise of either Dawn or Rick, or some supporting,
I think, it needs a couple people. Thank you.
Someone who has the input of that conference that went and used that guide and that language, right?
There's that,
Exactly.
and there's the materials that we got from Wellesley as well, that I think are
Yeah.
also.
Can you circulate those, Gloria?
I did at one point, and I will circulate them again. I think that, they went out, I think we circulated them a couple months ago, when I sent out the MHC slideshow and
The Wellesley stuff was in
chart.
there? I don't remember seeing the Wellesley stuff.
I can resend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and the draft is a letter to the Warren Street. I've lost
No,
myself.
the draft
Is
would
it-
just simply be an outline of what's included and not included.
in creating a local historical
Yeah,
district.
this is what
Okay.
we want to do. So
Okay.
essentially, a brief statement of purpose and, let me find it.
Okay.
I will circulate the flow chart things again. I think that'll give us a better.
I'm happy to do that. If anybody wants to help me,
Anybody
great.
else want to help?
So
Or
the
I can
draft
do it.
committee the draft committee consists of Laura
So
I'll
far,
help
Maybe.
you, Laura.
and
Oh,
Don.
thanks, Dawn.
thank you. And I'll make sure you have those documents and, we'll just start. I think that's our first step. Try and by the end of the season, next meeting, to have some sort of statement of what we think this bylaw can achieve. This is what it would look like. This is what we think it will do for us. Okay, we're coming up on 8 o'clock, so I'd like to move forward.
Just
on
one
the-
quick question, Gloria.
Yeah.
So we're not getting into the weeds about details for
No,
the,
not yet.
just a big, broad perspective.
Big broad perspective and, possibly a sentence saying, there are a lot more details to be specified and these will be, discussed going forward or something like that.
Okay.
So,
Oh, But we need to explain
Well,
what
we're
would
not
be
gonna
involved
start-
in the process, right? We need to
Yeah.
give some sort of like general timeline and flow chart, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the sort
Right.
of, the kinds of parameters we're looking for.
All right,
And
so Dawn, you and I can
kinds of
touch
parameters
base
we're
like
not looking
later
for.
on that.
Okay,
You know,
that's
to,
great.
to explain that those parameters are defined by their group,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yep.
we will look
Allay
at
the
that.
fears.
So
Okay,
thank you both for doing that, and we will look at it,
Sure.
if you're able to get it for us the next meeting.
I think,
you want to
Yeah.
do a first crack at it and get,
yeah, why
Go
don't
back and
I,
forth.
I'd like to get this stuff again from Gloria from Wellesley, and
Mm-hmm.
if the MHC stuff, I'm not sure where that is, if someone has their hands on that, or I
I
could.
can do that as well. I've got it all in a packet. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you send that to me, I'll do that, and then I'll send it to you, Dawn, and you can look at it, and then we can have a call.
yeah, Go back and forth.
Okay.
That's
Thank you
great.
so much.
Sure.
Okay, so our next issue is the Newari vision statement. Okay, so I sent you, as part of the agenda packet for tonight, two documents. One was the Newari Vision Guidelines Statement, and the second was the transmittal to the boards and committees. Which came from the select board. So the select board is directing the town's boards and committees to seek actionable ways to implement this vision. And I'm not going to read out both documents. I sent them to you, but I want to start the discussion by highlighting the primary charge to us as a committee. That's Needham will be a community free of racism, racial bias, prejudice, and discrimination. Our residents, schools, businesses, organizations, and government will work together to identify barriers to racial equity and create solutions, opportunities, resources, and support for removing them. And then that was the essentially the top line of the Newari vision statement. And in their charge, the select board said, in July 2020, the select board began the Needham United Against Racism initiative to foster a dialogue about racism in Needham and to produce actionable strategies to ensure that Needham is a welcoming and diverse community. During the next 6 months, the Newari Working Group developed a racial equity statement for the town of Needham, along with guiding principles and a set of intentional practices to help Needham realize the vision for racial equality. The select board has voted to adopt these recommendations, and Newari's work was approved as a non-binding resolution at May town meeting earlier this month. The select board asked the town's boards, committees, and commissions consider ways of adopting the vision and principles and integrating these concepts into our work plans, programs, and goals. The select board is interested in our perspectives and input going forward and would appreciate us letting them know what approaches and concrete plans of action we plan to take. The select board will host a periodic summit to assess progress in this work and ask for the help of all the town's elected and appointed policymakers. So this is the beginning of the discussion for us, and we are not going to solve everything tonight. But I want to get the process started and preferably start working on a draft outline. It may not be completed by our next meeting, but I would like to at least get some progress on it. Especially as, you know, there will be periodic meetings that we do have to represent our work at. And I'm going to just throw this out to start the discussion. And I see this goal as having two parts. One is the commission itself. And to my knowledge, there's never been a person of color on this commission. Certainly if there has, it's been many, many years since. So I think goal one is how do we attract more diversity on the commission itself? And then goal two is our historical resources. How do we highlight a more diverse understanding of Needham's history and incorporate that into the properties and locations that we designate as important in the inventory? And obviously these questions are not mutually exclusive. We cannot expect people to be interested or invested in the work of historic preservation if we ignore their presence in the town's history. So I think we're looking at this as two pieces, but two very interconnected pieces. So I'm hoping you have all had a chance to read it, and I would be interested in if anybody has any preliminary comments or ideas, and you know, we will start building some policies around that. Jeff, yes.
Well, it's my belief, you know, that, I mean, how much do we do in an effort to attract members and fill vacancies in general? And generally that's a role that's for the select board and that office. And it's the paid town government that sort of facilitates that process. I don't know how much we have done to be unwelcoming too. And I believe we could be a very welcoming group, and I don't know, I don't see a lot of room for changes. I don't know if we're, if there, I would support any efforts that the town would make to reach out beyond the normal recruitment process to garner support and involvement by a more diverse crowd. Like I said, they have a lot of things that they have to go through in regards to filling positions that have to comply with state regulations that are inclusive and welcoming. And I think so that's sort of my point. I don't know if are we unwelcoming? I would give that discussion to be open-minded about things, but we're not involved in the recruitment process.
There is no recruiting.
Well,
I mean, honestly, Jeff, I'm just speaking from experience as a new person here, and not to interrupt you, Gloria, I apologize.
no.
I wanted to get involved. I went to the website and it listed volunteer opportunities.
Yeah.
And I picked a few, and I met with Mo. And that's not our mission, but that whole thing has to change. That is just not the way to be inviting or welcoming to anybody, never mind someone who's a person of color or a minority or anything else, because you got to go find it if you want it. And that's not okay. That part's not okay. So I just needed to say that, just from being someone who just went through it. And I don't know about Dylan.
You want someone who wants it. You don't want to, right?
I know, but you can't just post something like deep in your website. I had to go find it.
Yeah.
You have to solicit.
I would say that I think you do want someone who wants it, but you also need to, I think to Laura's point, you need to make these kinds of opportunities more apparent. I don't know that this is this committee's responsibility. I think
I agree with that.
Jeff made a really good point that what do you call it, recruiting or identifying volunteers in the community is clearly not one committee's job. But my experience as the most recent member, like Laura, was pretty similar to yours. I basically had to really seek out ways to get involved, and it was kind of a hassle, honestly. And then, it did feel, not to knock on Mo, because I thought he was lovely and I had a nice time chatting with him, but it did feel at the time like you had to sort of clear the Mo hurdle before you were allowed to do anything in the town. And I don't know if I interpreted that right or wrong, but it definitely didn't seem like an easy process, right? It seemed like there were a lot of ways in which people would just feel like it wasn't either worth the hassle. Wasn't even worth like looking through the website that much. I think the idea here is doing more community outreach to let people know that these opportunities exist may create more interest in a more diverse group, right?
I agree. And that every commission should have, as part of its charter, commission committee, that it will be a diverse commission.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Gloria is the purpose of pushing this out to the committees from the town for us to provide them feedback on how to better do their part. Okay.
Not only to provide, it's for us to provide feedback, and I think you guys are absolutely right. And just to say, I think your experience was easier than most. It's a very variable process. Technically or officially, committee appointments are in the hands of the vice chair. And, over the years, there have been different styles of doing this and different every year. So yes, there is a lot to be said about how volunteers in general are recruited, how people find these opportunities. And to be honest, there are a lot of people who would be willing to do things if they were asked or if it was made evident to them that the opportunity exists, but
absolutely.
are less
I agree.
to seek them out or feel, you know, sometimes if you haven't been involved in a town committee or some sort of town process, you might not feel that you should or can, you know, just walk up to the board of select or the select board and say, hey, I want to be on a town committee. You may not realize that's an option available to you. So there's a
I think,
there's a lot.
I'm wondering if
Yeah.
Gloria, like, if, and this is probably, it's again, like Dylan said, it's probably not our purview, but we should have a liaison with every one of these town committees and commissions should have a liaison with Newari, and there should be someone who talks to us, or at least is a guest at our meetings, you know, quarterly or at some, because we don't know what's going on. So we can sit here and pretend that we know as a commission how we're going to contribute to this initiative, but the fact is we don't know how to do that, and that should not come from us. In my opinion, the memo and all of that is a great start, but it needs to come from the top down, not from these boards and commissions. You can't have all these committees and boards with their own little different agendas. It needs to come consistently from the top. And the only way we can understand what is going on and what the challenges are that are faced by this group of people is to have someone from that committee telling us about it. We can't do it on our own. That's my soapbox thing. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, and
That's actually
yeah,
quite
I
a good
understand
soapbox.
if the goal is to provide feedback to the town on raising awareness of opportunities, I think there's ways of doing it in various, you know, grassroots ways also, where, you know, certain people that are inclined to kind of be a spokesperson for these kinds of things can be identified. I mean, I'm a part of this like group of young dads in Needham. You know, there's probably like 40 or 50 people with like kids, you know, under the age of 10 or so. And in one of our like recent conversations, I mean, there's actually a couple of recently elected town members in that group. So I think interest in participating in town, you know, town administration is definitely on the rise. But prior to the most recent elections, I remember mentioning to someone that I volunteered at a couple of town commissions, and they had no idea even that these commissions existed. I explained to them how many there were and how many different types of, you know, topics they covered. And I mean, people were totally baffled. They just assumed that the town was managed by town employees, and that was that they had no idea that residents had a voice in these types of affairs. So there's clearly an outreach and an awareness campaign that needs to happen at a bigger level than this commission, right?
Yeah, and not only are these committees not town employees, but the town only functions because citizens volunteer for these committees, and the importance of citizen volunteers in the town government, you know, it can't be overstated and probably is not emphasized, you know, nearly as much as it needs to be. One thing I do want to add is, I like, just a second, Jeff. I like Laura and Dylan's suggestions a lot about how to approach the select board about you know, to better manage this process and make the process more transparent and inviting. One that we have in the past suggested commission members. You know, some vice chairs have, you know, their own potential volunteers. They go to the lists, but we have in the past also made suggestions. So we are not precluded from suggesting potential board members. We cannot appoint them, but we can say, you know, so-and-so is interested. We can encourage that person to put in the application, and then also tell the vice chair that we encourage this person because, you know, we think they're well qualified. So we don't have the defining role, but we're not entirely cut out of the role of appointments. Jeff, you had a comment?
Boy, I have a lot of comments, but you know, because this sparks it sort of sparks an interest, you know, or a bug in me. You know, it was a tough town meeting this year because there are a lot of people speaking out from the grassroots kind of level who were acting out in a way that they were somewhat entitled to the information that should be reached out and sent to them in some ways without a true and these recent elections, you know, with people voting a lot for change without really recognizing how town government you know, works. There was a level of animosity spoken out against, you know, people who, you know, again, here are people who are volunteers in the town and leadership roles, or, you know, and then yet also people don't understand and want to be spoon-fed the information of how many committees there are in there and how many opportunities there are for input in how town government operates and how and so on. So it is not a responsibility of ours. We have in the past have had vacancies where I can recall where we have explored anybody, you know, do we know anybody who we think would be good for the role now, position, you know, and, you know, of course, we did not have a wealth of candidates to come up with, you know, at our disposal, and felt like, oh, well, you know, it's up to the select board to find that next candidate, you know. Well, I know how maybe the website, you know, people reached out for that, but, you know, I think there've been advertisements by the selectmen for vacancies. There's always a listing of where longstanding vacancies in committees are. So there's been an effort to sort of to advertise, yes, of course, somewhere. You know, maybe they don't advertise in diverse newspapers and so on, but there's certainly a difficulty in filling vacancies across the board in at all positions, I think, in running town government, because it is a volunteer government. So you know, you have to get people who are interested, willing to work hard and volunteer their time. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. I think that gets back to the question of outreach, though. You know, they advertise them in the Times and they advertise them on the town mailing list. So if you haven't signed up for, you know,
I would never read a paper, like a paper in paper version. I don't know. That's not how I would, you know what I mean?
well,
It's
the
just
problem-
not enough.
and you don't have a choice now because the online version is now behind the paywall. So, you know, so yeah, so that's, you know, I think the number of people that actually see the town's ads to seek volunteers are probably quite small. And they need to think of the ways to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's not, as I said, it's not, you know, it's not it's not within our purview to appoint our own members. As I said, we do have some ability to make suggestions and to encourage people to apply, and we should absolutely be doing this. That's our part in this process, and hopefully the town as a whole, seeking a more diverse pool of volunteers, this will filter through all of the committees, not just ours. Does anybody else have comments on this?
Gloria, I just want to say that I think in response to this transmission memo, whatever, from the town, I think we should respond to it as a commission.
Yeah. No, that's
And
what
I think we should come up with, and it should be, you know, hopefully I would like to do it soon. I don't want to wait till September, but maybe we have to. And I'd like to just, all of us come up with a response, like saying, of course, we're adopting this, but I think we need to also say, you know, we need support from, it can't originate from us. It can be supported by us, but the way we get candidates needs to be supported in a more diverse way and advertised that way.
Mhm.
And it shouldn't just be you sign up and you go meet with Mo, like Dylan said, lovely person, and then, okay, he decides if you get it. That's really that is the most unintentional but wrong way to get diversity, right? I mean,
Excuse me, I
Let her finish, Jeff, let her finish.
okay. And my other thing is, I'd like to say, I wouldn't say that in the letter to them, but that we would like to have a liaison from Newari rotate on our committee.
Okay. I'm making notes as we go along, so I will sort of draft this out and circulate it so we have a running list of what we've been talking about. Yes, Jeff.
Well, I gotta take issue with, I've been on another committee for almost 25 years. Okay, I've been a chairperson of the Solid Waste Disposal Committee for more than 10. I've had many vacancies filled in that committee where I was notified of as the chair who that person was, right? And it's only been in Mo Handel's tenure term as the assistant of the vice chair that I was included in the interview process. And so he made, it was ultimately his decision, and he made recommendations to the select board for that appointment. Okay, he gave me my input, and actually it was a team process. No other vice chair has ever involved me, and I don't even necessarily know how formal an interview some of them even gone through, because when I went through it with Mo, we went through 3 candidates and interviewed them at the town hall. And so when you say that's a wrong process left to him, I mean, one, he doesn't make the decision, he makes the recommendations to the select board. But other people have taken that responsibility and just made their recommendation to the board based on their own input, not even getting other input or even conducting anything more than a phone interview, because maybe they didn't have a lot of candidates or so on.
I
And I think
understand.
that's
But
a
I think the problem is
let me say that's a formal
so
interviewing
variable.
process, right? As staff, I mean, which is the normal way of the world works. People do it in a formal interviewing process. Now,
I
how
had a
does that?
formal interview. I had a 3 or 4 person panel. At some point.
I'm not picking on Mo individually,
Yeah,
by the
no,
way. I
but
think he's
but I think
wonderful.
the
It's
point
just
is
the
that
process.
it's a
Yeah.
very variable process. It's very much at the mercy of whoever's, the appointing authority that year. And, and it has been over the years better or worse. And, yes, I think it could be. But it's not even the interview process so much as getting the people to interview is so haphazard.
Exactly my point. It starts way before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we are well within our mandate to make suggestions about the recruitment and interview process. We'll do it.
They've asked us.
We'll
They've
do it
asked us for.
anyway.
They've asked for input. So
Yes,
here's
no,
the
I agree.
input.
Yeah.
And if people involved in Newari, and the grassroots people want to broaden the scope and the pool to include a more diverse population, rather than pointing out to the overwhelmed, underfunded state, the public servants, why don't they go out and go out to the more diverse communities, go out to the public housing and see if they can get people interested in being involved in town government, there, rather than just saying, putting that upon the town to do, okay? That's, again, it's all good to point out things, what people aren't doing and why aren't they doing it? But how about throwing in and being a little bit more helpful in regards to that as well? And towns are very constricted about what they can do, say, and how they do that, right? I don't know what they'd have to do to be able to post things at public housing places, but the grassroots people might not have the same kind of constraint, and that could be a whole lot more helpful from them rather than them just imposing all the things like that, right?
I don't think Newari is sitting back and waiting for everybody else to take care of this for them. But I think, there has to be recognition that committees have to be aware of the lack of diversity on these committees and find ways. And that includes going through the community and encouraging more people, going to other non-committee groups, going to church groups, going to civic organizations, and sort of beating the drum a little bit. We're looking for volunteers. We are looking for people to join these committees. This is where you find the information. Please talk to us.
It has to be disseminated.
For people to show up, which is
Right, and you can't just use like the need of the local paper or even whatever. You have to do your own. If you want diversity, you have to do outreach to get it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in a place like Needham, you have to reach out to find it, and you have to find the people that can help you find it. You cannot do it the way they're doing it. It's not going to work. It's not intentional, but it's not effective what they're doing. And that's why I think asking for a liaison who does have those contacts in the community, who is asking for this, and who got a town warrant voted for them to support this is totally fair to ask for.
Yep. Any other comments? Okay, I think we're running long. It's 8:20 now. But I will sort of draft up what we just talked about and circulate it. So we'll make sure we got everything covered that makes sense. The other thing is, in our ideal world now, we have a better recruiting process. We have more outreach, and we have this big pool of candidates. How do we make the historical commission itself more of a, how do we highlight the work that we can do to highlight diversity in the town's history, make the town's history more relevant more broadly? So that's something to ponder for next week. And we'll continue this discussion, or next month, and we'll continue this discussion. And it would be nice if we could get something drafted, at least preliminarily to submit, in that time frame, rather than having to wait until September.
Something to ponder for next week or next meeting?
Next meeting, the June 21st meeting. So if anybody does have ideas or comments and wants to send them to me in the interim, and I will compile them and circulate them, so we will be maybe a little bit that much more forward of the discussion, because obviously with one meeting left to go for the end of the season, we don't have a lot of time. Okay.
I'll email you.
Yes.
I'll send you an email.
Good, thank
Gloria.
you. Thank you. Yeah, if you could, anybody wants to do that, and I'll get those out, I'll compile all that stuff and get it out to you before the next meeting. So, so we have something to start chewing on. Does anybody have any additional comments, questions, observations, business? All set, then do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Thank you, everybody. This was a great discussion.
Thanks, Gloria.
A lot of
Thank you
good
so
work.
much.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria.
Nice to see you, Dylan.
You too. Nice to see everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
everybody, we'll see you next time. Thanks, Clay. You can go home now.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.